Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Members Presents. I'm losing count now. So we have this. We had an awesome presentation last month by Logan, who is here with us again. So thanks for coming back. And we have a great turnout again tonight. And tonight we have a presentation by James Woods, who's been behind the camera for the past how many months?
Yeah, 3 years.
Quite a few. So he's basically the reason why these get up on YouTube because he records it. Yes, thanks, James.
Thank you, Jenny.
And then James even made the poster this month because he's actually doing the presentations. That's awesome too. And James is a recent graduate of the Master of Architecture program at UTSA, so Go Local Education.
Awesome.
And he did an LCA study on a local project in San Antonio that he's going to tell us about. And then he also did a master's research project on, is it urban farming?
Urban farming, earthen construction.
Wow.
Organic farming, architecture.
So lots of interrelated development efforts there that I think will be of interest to folks in this constituency. We've had a great following for these presentations and attendance at the meetings, and even when we took a break and went to Austin for a month, we had a great attendance there. I just want to remind everybody that to thank you guys for being members, that everybody in here is currently a member, I think has been a member at one point, and just to, if you can, keep that up, renew your membership. I know this is a free thing that we do, and the reason we're even able to do this for free is because of our connection with Ed and the Southwest School of Art, that we don't have to pay for this space, we get to do this awesome thing. So although we do make an in-kind donation to the Southwest School of Art, so there is a direct monetary relationship to it. They don't ask for it, but it's just a goodwill effort that we do that. They also host a Christmas party. There's a lot of things that, everybody on the board who does something, or anybody who pitches in and is doing it without like fees or anything like that, and people drive from Austin to San Antonio, vice versa, regularly, making those in-kind donations. And we haven't had a workshop yet to, like, for instance, offer like, okay, well, this is what your membership buys, a discount to this workshop. We haven't got there yet, but we will get there. But we do appreciate your support. It pays for things like our website, which we got right now, and like our, post office box and all that kind of stuff that you just need in the background to have and that kind of thing. And there's other kind of like little research memberships and that kind of thing that we need to get acquire documents. So bigger plans are coming. But the membership, that's our basic like funding right now. So thank you guys for supporting us with your membership and coming to these presentations right here and helping it keeping this sustainable so that we don't have to charge for this kind of thing. So much appreciated. And I think that's all I got right now. So without further ado, James.
So thanks everyone. James Woods. Just recently graduated from UTSA. And tonight I'll be discussing 2 of the projects that I had accomplished in the past couple of years. Master's thesis on urban farming. I guess you could call it suburban farming, possibly. And also a life cycle assessment on the Mujeres Artes clay art studio. How the cost of building with earthen materials, specifically here, compressed earth blocks, and also how the embodied and operational energy all correlates and promote, or the report will promote earthen building. So, quick background on myself. When I was 19 years old, I joined the Marine Corps, and one of the first training that was like eye-popping and like, whoa, what did I get myself into, was someone was instructing us on how to deter enemy fire and what to do if you're taking enemy fire. And they said, dirt is your best friend. And they took sandbags and they unloaded a magazine into the sandbags. And they took a Kevlar helmet, put the Kevlar helmet on the ground and shot it once, and it was gone. So I learned pretty quick of the durability of Earth, and that was kind of the seed that was planted. Fast forward about 5 years later, I'm serving a mission in Guatemala. And basically what I was doing there was teaching and serving the people there. And I was almost done with my 2 years that I was there. And we were cutting down this tree as a service project. And we had measured it pretty well. We thought, okay, if we cut it this way, and we do it this way, the tree's gonna fall right here in this empty lot. Well, it started to fall that way, and then it got caught, and then it started to fall towards this building behind me in the picture on the left. And that is an earthen structure. It had been there at least 100 years, and it fell. When the tree fell, the guy who lived there came out and was yelling at us. We really became, really good friends for the short 2 months that I got to know him. And he told me all about this house. His great-grandfather had built it, and it had lasted 100 years. Luckily, the only thing I think that was damaged was this old aluminum roof, which, no one was living there, but anyway, there was a couple of seeds that were planted, and fast forward a few more years later, and I'm in class. Stephen comes into our class and starts talking about earthen material, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember all these things that have happened in my life. And then 2 weeks later, I'm watching Jim Halleck on YouTube and learning more about earthen construction. Wow, that's really amazing. So kind of derailed what I thought architecture was, and I focused more on sustainability, earthen materials, especially in my graduate school year. So first thing we're going to talk about tonight is life cycle assessment. Life cycle assessment, I guess to put it down into simple words, is understanding where things come from, or an object would probably be better said, an object. Where an object comes from, what does it do, and where does it go? This is kind of a correlation between a tree and maybe an object or a building on the right. And what you have to understand about life cycle is what are the inputs and what are the outputs. And if you can understand those two things, then you can break down the cost of the entire life cycle, the energy output, or the materials. And with that being said, also, that's where life cycle assessments came from breaking down economics. And then later in architecture, that's relatively new idea of thinking. In understanding where the energy comes from and where does it go. And when you do a life cycle assessment, I do this stuff every day now. When I think about what should I get? Should I get this car or this car? Or should I do this food or this food? I think about where it comes from, where did it come from, and where is it going? This is a good example of a coffee cup. In a 5-year span, you would use 1,825 coffee cups of paper, or you can buy one mug. And it would serve a better purpose, it would have a less impact. When doing a life cycle assessment, you should be comparing things, apples to apples, oranges to oranges. Just like this. The purpose, or the program, I guess you could say, in this is a coffee cup should be holding coffee so you can drink it. If you had something completely different, it wouldn't correlate very well and be off. So for this report I did, I took the Mujeres Artes clay art studio and the San Anto Cultural Center, which is just right down the street. And I tried to find 2 buildings that were very similar. The first thing that I was doing for this class was to report on earthen construction. So there wasn't many options there, but then I had to find another building with the same program. And that was a task and a half. It's probably not the best building for it because there's 2 different types of materials. The building is a CMU block and brick building, and then it has an extension to it of aluminum panels, or aluminum siding and everything through the whole thing. It's not the best correlation, but due to time and trying to get the paper done so I could graduate, it worked. So how to do a life cycle assessment on a building. Basically, you gotta know what the materials are. The materials are And you break those down into a list, and you got to know the measurements. So here is quick wall sections, some elevations, just to kind of understand what the building looks like maybe a little bit better, and a floor plan. So what I did was I measured it with a tape measure. Later I got drawings, and I kind of got it more accurate. So you take the materials, you're going to load or figure out the total amount of quantities into it, and I did that for both. And then you got to figure out where it came from. So this, you're basically looking at where does it come from, the extraction. You look at where it's manufactured and how it got to the site, like the transportation. And that goes into every part of the LCA's transportation. That's usually where the most impact is done, energy-wise, in the construction. For the life cycle assessment for the Mujeres Artes, what I did was I calculated everything manually, and it was a task and a half. It was, I'm glad I took physics and chemistry and all those other math-related courses because I really needed it, especially physics. I'll go there. And I did it all, and I came to the conclusion that I think I got it pretty much down. And what I did, I didn't add that to the slide, to double check, to make sure there's a program called Earthen Impact Estimator. And it's something I've used before. And it's a great tool. You can use it for any building. You just have to know the measurements and put it into the program, and it'll tell you everything you need to know. The only problem is it doesn't have compressed earth blocks. It doesn't have rammed earth. It doesn't have the alternative building materials. So what I did is I measured everything out and compared it to embodied energy of, it's a ratio of how other materials like plywood, CMU, and how much impact they have in the embodiment of them. And what I did there was just, synthesize it a little bit. So I came to a conclusion looking at some of these graphs here that CMU is about half the energy or embodied energy as rammed earth or stabilized compressed earth. So it was just half. Everyone I pulled up was almost half. So what I did was ran it through the estimator, halved it, and I had my energy calculations. Here's another example. And this could be used on any project. And then they got to the results. And basically, Mujeres Artes performed very well in every aspect of embodied energy, and the operational energy was performed extremely better than the Sanato. The only part where it didn't perform very well was the cost. And we hear this quite often, that building with earth, it's labor intensive, so it's going to cost more. And I'm going to flip back and forth between these two screens real quick. This is Sanato. I need to change these so it reads a little bit better, but the cost was about $20 per square foot to build with for the Sanato, basically for the walls. It was $45 for the earthen walls, but the operational energy was $750 more at the Sanato. So within 3 years, your walls are paid for. And to look at the CPS energy bills that I got from both of them, it was just night and day of how they performed. In the summer, there was 59,000 kilowatt hours, 74 kilowatt hours. In the winter was even more. So the building performed absolutely amazing. If you haven't been in there, you should go and just on a hot day. It's just amazing how well it performs. Yes.
What about the occupancy?
Occupancy. That was another thing of comparing. Like I said, you need to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. Couldn't quite get it to work. Sanato has less people in it, though. It's usually an after-school program for youth, as opposed to the Mujeres Artes, which is women there from about 9 to 5, basically. So they're occupying the space more. Why their energy was higher, I'm not 100% sure. Just looking at the energy bills. But most likely it's the air conditioning. The embodied energy of per square foot was 175 megajoules, 433 megajoules of embodied energy. So it performed well in cost. It performed well over a total cost. It performed even better in embodied and operational energy. 55% less and 25 more efficient in operational energy. So this project here will be presented at Earth USA on a poster. So when you walk over there, you go walk by it. I don't know if I'll be standing there, but you can look at it. Like, I know that one. Anyways, moving on. This is the master's thesis that I had. And basically, what I was doing here was trying to establish an off-the-grid farming complex. And there's two things happening here. The main thing that runs the farm is the farm headquarters. And then there's another part over here, which is more of like a co-op for people to understand farming sustainably, earthen materials, and there's just two programs kind of going on, and they kind of intermingle a little bit. Some of the influences I had dealt with permaculture, with biophilic design, and different kinds of farming techniques. These are just kind of the images of what I thought the building should look like and how they should appear. And I wanted the community to be highly involved with nature. So when you go there, it didn't feel like you were at a farm, you felt like you went to nature. And I wanted it to have a single idea that led to a path, maybe. A path from going from the city, through the farm, through nature, and experiencing it. This is more precedence showing just what I thought it might look like. The program of it was based off a CSA in Austin, Texas, called Johnson's Backyard Garden, and they have a community-supported agriculture, which is, you pay the farmer, and he gives you crops. He sends them to you. They do it throughout almost all of South Texas. I know they have it in Austin for sure, at markets, and they also have it, you can pick them up here in San Antonio. And Benny Johnson is the owner. He started this about 10 years ago, if I remember correctly. Started in his backyard, bought it and filled up his whole entire yard with crops, and his wife said, okay, you need to do something about this. Kids can't play. So he moved from his yard, he bought 200 acres, and now he has a huge 400, 500 acre site. And he's dividing all these, lots of ideas about organic farming. And they have lots of activities there. And they have I know they definitely have a 5K run that goes through it.
Looks like they have a fancy fundraising event.
Yeah, fundraising events and other things just so people come to the farm, and it becomes a cooperative where people get to learn about things and live healthy. I mean, the whole reason why he started this was to be for his children. So come out and you can work on the farm every once in a while. This is the kind of ideas that I wanted to bring to the farm. Another person who influenced me a little bit was Plenty Fisk. I always forget the name of his organization, Center of Maximum Potential Building Systems. You can shorten that up a little bit, but
I call him Max's Spot.
yeah. But the same idea, where he brings as many ideas to the table as possible so people can learn, and I wanted the farm to do the same thing here. He's just coming up with ideas with low impact, efficient energy use for building. This is a place up in Austin. People come and visit.
What is that place?
It's in Austin. It's Plentyfish Center of Maximum
Oh, okay.
Potential Building Systems. Yeah. This was a farm he did back in, I believe, the 70s, I think it was, maybe the 80s. And it was a very small footprint. So I kind of just didn't have much I could take from this. But I took little pieces out of it. It was kind of like the beginning of my project. So this is the site location. This is on the southeast side of San Antonio. And I'm forgetting the name of this place right now. Right down the street from where I grew up though. Southeast side off of Roland and we live over there. In Rigsby. So at the top right here is Rigsby, down here is Roland. There's a farm that's been there for at least 50 years. And it's only 5 miles away from the center of downtown. It's on a floodplain. That's probably why it hasn't been sold and built into houses yet. But in the research, I learned that the best farmland is on floodplains. So 5 miles from center of downtown. So my main goal was to provide organic food, and I wanted the buildings on the site to be just as organic. And the way I tried to prove that was showing that the buildings were to the Living Building Challenge standard, which is like a step up from LEED. And they take it at a different trajectory than LEED does. They try to incorporate many other things like the community, embodied energy, and other things like that. These are kind of the design principles. Basically what I wanted to do is have nature in everything. Through biophilia, through reduction of energy. So every design decision was, how do I make this low impact, but really efficient? So this is just a breakdown of how the site was used. I'm going to cut through some of this stuff. Basically, what I took from Johnson's Backyard Garden was they used zones, and zones organizes the farm in different ways. And when I was going through this process, oftentimes I'm like, am I farming or am I doing architecture here? But when you think about it, there's really no difference because you have to organize both. So not only does zoning, you can rotate your crops, but it puts the workers where they need to be at the right time. And shown on here shows the 2 different headquarters in red. You have the farming headquarters, and then you have the cooperative market, bed and breakfast area. And there's the 2 areas. So the farming headquarters, I just took the program and basically the buildings of Johnson's Backyard Garden and put them on the site. It was as if Johnson's Backyard Garden moved here and had this different idea. I didn't try to do too much with it because I wouldn't say it's complicated, but there's a lot of farming technical things that I didn't want to cover in the project. So the diagram on the top left, I thought we'd be able to see a little bit more of this. But that's basically breaking down all the inputs and outputs. And to create an off-the-grid system, I had to figure out where the outputs went and try to put them into an input. So for instance, if we had cattle on this site, we would take the manure and use it back into the farming system. And also the weather played a huge part in what we're doing, not only for the buildings, but also for the farming. And I tried to interject a little bit between the built environment and where the animals would live. And this was kind of the main piece here that put the farm and nature together, especially the fauna and animal life. So at the very top is vermiculture, which is composting through worms. I have a bucket in my house right now of worms eating our garbage. The next thing was beekeeping. And I think we all kind of understand what beekeeping, how it interacts between nature and the built environment. Another thing that was possible was insect hotels. Lots of extra wood and debris could be used to house insects. And the insects would go from the house, they could go out to the fields. It's basically promoting good insects to eat the bad insects. Chicken tractors was another one. You just basically build a house for the chickens. You can move it over your crops, and they would eat up the bugs. And that way, they're protected also from bad animals that can get to the chickens. One of the more interesting ones was bat houses. And we're about to put one up on our house at home, 11 by 8 by 2 inch bat house. Will house over 50 bats.
Wow.
And then that will take care of your mosquito problems. This was actually implied at Johnson's Backyard Gardens too. So
2 inches, 11 by 8 by 8.
once I have it, it's about that big, and it will fill up that big. So if you can imagine one that was this big, how many it would hold? So you can put those strategically throughout the farm and take care of. Getting more into what the floral aspect, the vegetables. Another interesting thing I came across was solar sharing, where you could put solar panels on top of your crops. It would reduce the heat, and you get energy from it. So it's a double win. And with tractors nowadays, you could just put the GPS into it, and the tractors can go through there, and it would miss all of the solar panels. The other three things here is basically using the soil, using protection to protect the plants. So we talked about the one furthest away here, the farm. Now to the actual building of the architecture and the design process. The building went here, most likely, or because there was less trees. And part of the Living Building Challenge, which I'll get into in a minute, was low impact. So if I put it here because there was less trees and it wouldn't interfere with the surrounding area. Just to walk through the floor plans of it real quick. It was a bed and breakfast, or I'll walk through it this way. It was kind of an experience. As you came in, you would first go to the market and experience the crops. And you would go to the cooperative and learn how to do it. You even have a restaurant on site to learn how to cook and learn how to, make the vegetables that you grow. And then if you stayed long enough, you'd be able to enjoy a bed and breakfast. And then as you went through the next day, you can go back to the Salado Creek trails and ride bikes and connections to the city. And there's two other things that I'll get to here in a second. So the market co-op was just the initial idea to show basically why people would come. The catch would be the farm and to get the crops and the vegetables and everything that's there. The restaurant, like I said, was to let people experience what the food would taste like and how to cook it. The bed and breakfast was just to share people what it would be like to live in an earthen building or different type of off-the-grid systems. There was a wetland on there, so all of the energy that was used, or all the fecal matter or all of the waste that went in there went through the wetland. It would be composted and possibly reused or possibly used or drained out to the Salado Creek. And there was two other things that I thought would really catch other people too. A natural pond, which you use as a swimming pool. And basically it's just, it looks like a pool naturally into the landscape. The natural pool system uses plants and other material to clean out the water so that it would be completely clean. With that being said, these natural pools operate more efficiently than the pools that most people have in their backyard. Another thing that would go into it was food storage and a wine cellar, which would be completely underground, efficient for storing the wine and storing the food. Lastly, the last few slides is about the Living Building Challenge. And the Living Building Challenge is made up of 7 petals: energy, equity, health, beauty, materials, sight, and water. And to go through these rather quickly, so we can finish up here because it's really hot in here today. was place. The building had to fit into place in several different ways. One way that I did that was looking at the aquifers and the water that was going to go into, that would be needed for the farm, as well as the bed and breakfast and market area. Another important thing that was to be decided about this was how it connected to the city and how it connected to have a low impact. One of the main things that goes through the site is the Salado Creek Greenway, so there was a connection between the city and the farm so people could enjoy these things like bike riding in the Salado Creek Greenway. The low impact of the area, because it's farmland, would meet the requirements of Living Building Challenge. The water that goes through it, this is just a diagram of how the water could be used and stored. So part of the Living Building Challenge is to store your own water and to recycle all your water. And this is basically a diagram from a school in Baltimore. I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head. President Obama's daughters went to the school. Sidwell Friends. I just took their diagram and put it in here. The only extra part was the organic pool, which would also work as water storage. And there'd be a well that would connect to it, and all this would meet the requirements of Living Building Challenge. Then getting to energy, which I just took from my project on the Mujeres Artes. Plugged in the energy calculations that I got and used it for this, and it met the requirements. It was very efficient in embodied energy. Something else that Living Building Challenge asks for is health. And there's lots of these pedals that it's requiring that I'm not going over, but I'm just trying to hit the highlights here. One of them was great daylighting and efficient daylighting. So it would promote a good health inside the building. And it had really great requirements for it. And here's the materials that was used on the site. They would all be used in local materials. Something that I grabbed from Plenty Fisk was that his use of local vernacular materials, and all the materials that he used, I used in this project. And just another breakdown of the materials. And then the last couple that are here, they get kind of vague because it needs to really be designed and built to connect to how it fits to human scale. And then the whole process of moving from the market through the bed and breakfast to the city, or to the Salado Creek, was all part of that, and how it fit to the human scale. And beauty and spirit and education, that was the whole purpose of the project, was to show how beautiful earthen construction is, how great it is in the built environment, as well as farming, and how that could be applied to. And the education was another important thing, because it was a cooperative, so that all of us could learn about earthen construction and farming. And here's the last few images of what it would look like. And this is a section of the market. There's no tables there, they're packed up for the day. There's no one inside, but that would be kind of where you would be able to purchase things. I'm going backwards, that's fine. This would be the bed and breakfast area, and how it connects to nature. And the natural pool. And that's my master's project. Any questions?
Have you seen a movie Farm?
I wanted to.
It's on Netflix.
This happened after it came out, my project. Just got done with it and had, slept weeks.
It's
And then that
it's
movie
amazing.
came out. And it's
Yeah.
basically the same concept too. I totally forgot about that.
The couple started out with absolute trashed piece of, acreage. It's just deader than a doornail. And over the course of 8 to 10 years, they brought it to a very luscious life. It's just incredible. I encourage you all to see that movie.
I have a question too.
Sure.
In a similar vein, do you know about the Texas Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance?
I do. I came across that through Johnson's Backyard. Right?
Yeah, they're doing amazing work, and I bet they'd love to get a copy of your book, and bet you could connect with all kinds of really great people. I'm a member, and I've been watching them. I haven't been able to go to any of their conferences. I had a direct conflict. They had a big dinner in San Marcos back in August with like grass-fed beef and all kinds of organic vegetables and stuff. And they had some really good speakers at the conference, so I hope to be able to go. But they're really pioneering, and they do legislative lobbying also. So I bet they would love to, know about you and what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've done. They're pretty friendly people.
I'd point out that we used an earthen floor and rubble trench foundation on the Mujeres Artes, and we cut the carbon content of the foundation by 50%.
Wow.
So earthen floors are good for you.
There was other things about that I didn't mention. I talked to the groundskeeper there, I forget his name. He was mentioning that a couple of design strategies, in hindsight, that would probably be better. He said that the energy would spike in the winter because the women would bring their space heaters and they put them on their feet. And he said, I think it's the floor. It's too cold for them. He mentioned other things. The system that went into the dual split air conditioning system was just cranked for the first 4 or 5 months that was there. And he was going, why is it so cold in here? Why don't we just turn it down? And he turned it down and he said that the energy would go lower when you'd see the bills.
You have to learn how to fly the buildings in terms of balancing out their cycles and when to put energy in and when to take it out, because it's completely different from other buildings.
Right, exactly. He said that he would crank it until about noon, and then it would coast the rest of the day. So he turned it off at night.
Yeah, I just wanted to go off of that because I have a roommated plant a lot over there that I tend to for the last 3 years or so, and I've been going in and talking to the women there, North American friends there. And it is, one of the things that I think they could have done better, not the builders so much, but the whole thing was to talk more to the people that are using the building, because they have a kiln. It's supposed to be outside, but because of certain where the plug-in and stuff was, it has to be inside, which is not a good thing for an urban building because it heats up and all that.
That was a question I had too. I asked that, and he said that no heat comes off of it. And he said, go ahead and touch it, and I touched it.
Oh, that's not true.
He said it was running, and I went up there and put my hand, not on it, but towards it, and I didn't feel...
Well, I don't know. The one that they're using now, I know they've gone for more than one, but it's...
Yeah, they have 2 there, so different.
And it also, it's partly the humidity that is, that you deal with. The kiln is drying things out, so then you have
That's
this
true,
kiln,
too.
and it's just things that need, that as we build, we also have to consider the specific activities that are going to be going on in that building that might be, it's very different than if it was a residence and stuff like that. But it's an amazing building. It's just...
Steve?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hello.